The sun, a brutal sovereign, held court over the border patrol station in the desert. Its relentless gaze bleached the world to shades of ochre and bone, searing the air you breathed, a dry, metallic taste that clung to the back of your throat. Each gust of wind, a sigh of sandpaper, scoured the corrugated metal walls, carrying with it the scent of baked earth and distant, dying vegetation. This was your dominion now, Marcus, this desolate outpost, a purgatory of dust and duty, far from the polished floors and hushed whispers of the precinct you once called home. You traced the rim of your chipped coffee mug, the ceramic warm against your calloused fingertips. The liquid inside was tarthic, a testament to hours past, to the slow, deliberate erosion of ambition. Your uniform, once crisp, now bore the faint, indelible marks of desert life, a fine film of grit, a permanent crease of weariness. It was a disguise, you often thought, a camouflage against the man you used to be, against the ghost of the case that had shattered your world. The journalist. You'd buried it deep, under layers of sand and solitude, but some things refused to stay interred. The radio crackled, a sudden intrusion into the vast, indifferent silence, spitting out a garble of codes and coordinates. You responded with practiced apathy, your voice a low rasp, devoid of the fire that once fueled your every interrogation. The patrol would be back soon, their faces etched with the same fatigue that lined your own. This was the rhythm of your penance, a monotonous drumbeat under an unforgiving sky. Then, a glint of chrome on the horizon, an anomaly in the vast, empty canvas. A black sedan, not the standard issue, but something sleek, out of place, stirring up a plume of red dust as it approached. Your jaw tightened. Visitors here were rare, and never without purpose. A prickle of unease, sharp and unexpected, snaked through the dull ache of your resignation. The car pulled up, tires crunching on the gravel. A figure emerged, tall and impeccably dressed, a stark contrast to the faded uniforms and sun-baked faces of your colleagues. He moved with an authority that spoke of powerful offices, of a world you had deliberately abandoned. Marcus Thorne? His voice was smooth, a low hum that cut through the station's ambient drone. He didn't ask it as a question, but as a confirmation. You merely nodded, your gaze unwavering, a silent challenge in your posture. You didn't offer a hand. You didn't invite him in. My message is. He glanced around the sparse office, dismissing its contents with a subtle curl of his lip. We have a mutual acquaintance. Amelia Vance. The name hit you like a physical blow, a sudden, brutal punch to the gut. The air seemed to thin, the desert's heat intensifying, though you knew it was only the sudden rush of memory, the ghost of a nightmare reawakened. Amelia Vance. No leads. The stranger's smile was thin, humorless. Not anymore. It seems Miss Vance's work, even in death, continues to resonate. Powerful people are uncomfortable. He paused, letting the implication hang in the dusty air. A certain politician, poised for a significant ascent, has found himself entangled in a web Amelia was weaving. A very intricate web, Marcus. This wasn't just about Amelia anymore. This was bigger, far larger than the street-level violence you'd investigated all those years ago. The disillusionment, the isolation, they felt like thin veils now, easily pierced. We want you, Marcus Thorne, the stranger said, his steel gaze locking onto yours. We want the man who looked past the official narrative, the man who saw the threads no one else bothered to follow. We believe Amelia Vance's death was no random act. and we believe you were close to the truth, before it was buried." He reached into his inner jacket pocket, producing a slim, unmarked folder. "A chance to finish what you started. It will be dangerous. More dangerous than you can imagine. But the alternative." He let the thought trail off, a silent implication of continued obscurity. Of a life perpetually haunted. You stared at the folder, your reflection wavering in the worn surface of the desk. The desert wind howled outside, a mournful lament, or perhaps, a call to arms. The ghost of Amelia Vance, the echo of your failure, suddenly felt closer, more real than the sand under your boots. Redemption, a word you'd long banished from your vocabulary, now shimmered, a mirage in the relentless heat. The tension in the room was a living thing, constricting your chest, demanding a choice. But looking away felt like a surrender you could no longer afford. The weight of the past, the promise of the future, hung in the balance, a dangerous, irresistible pull. The manila folder lay before you, a pale, unassuming rectangle on the scarred surface of your desk. Amelia Vance. The name, a ghost from your past, whispered through the quiet of your office, stirring dust motes in the shaft of afternoon light that pierced the gloom. Your gaze, heavy with the weight of years and failures, drifted from the folder to the face of the colleague who had placed it there. His eyes, though weary, held an unwavering conviction, a silent challenge that echoed the words still hanging in the air. "This is your chance, Thorne." A chance. The word felt foreign, a forgotten language on your tongue. Redemption had long been a myth you discarded, a foolish hope for lesser men. Yet, the image of Amelia, her sharp intellect, her relentless pursuit of truth, flickered in your mind. You remembered the glint in her eyes, the way she'd cornered you for a quote, her pen poised like a weapon. He had been a force, and her silencing had been a wound that never truly healed, a festering injustice beneath the scar of your own disgrace. A long breath hitched in your chest, tasting of stale coffee and regret. You reached out, your fingers hovering over the folder's edge, feeling the faint crinkle of the paper. It was a tangible link to a world you'd sworn to leave behind, a world of shadows and lies. Your jaw tightened. Perhaps it wasn't about redemption, not truly. Perhaps it was simply about answers for her. For the ghost that still walked the corridors of your memory. "All right," you rasped, the single word a grudging surrender. It tasted like ash, but a faint spark, long dormant, flickered within you. "Show me what you have." The colleague offered a curt nod, a subtle easing in the tension around his shoulders. He pushed a stack of additional files across the desk, thicker and more worn than the initial folder. "These are the originals. Police reports, witness statements, Amelia's own notes." His voice dropped, hushed, as if the very walls might listen. "And these." He tapped a slim binder, its cover devoid of any official markings. The threads that were never pulled. The ones that lead to the current campaign, to the politician, Wallace Croft, and his inner circle. You watched his hand, steady and deliberate, as he outlined the initial connections. Croft, then a rising star in local politics, had been a frequent subject of Amelia's investigations, a fact dismissed as mere coincidence in the original inquiry. Now, a decade later, Croft was on the precipice of national power, his campaign a juggernaut. You pulled the first file towards you, the familiar scent of aged paper and dried ink filling your nostrils. It was the initial incident report, detailing the scene, a quiet park bench, a single shot, no witnesses. Your eyes scanned the meticulous, yet ultimately futile, details of the original investigation. He had been tracking land deals, shell corporations, and a series of anonymous donations to Croft's early campaigns. One name, almost an afterthought in her sprawling notes, caught your eye: a minor functionary, a low-level aide who had been dismissed from Croft's staff shortly after Amelia's death. The aide had then vanished, only to resurface years later, working at a remote government facility. The colleague cleared his throat. The words conjured an image of endless, shimmering heat, of dust. Devils dancing across an unforgiving landscape. Why there? Why a low-level aide, tied to a minor scandal, working in such a remote outpost? The connection, tenuous as it was, snagged your attention. You leaned back in your chair, the worn leather groaning beneath you. The files, spread across your desk, began to form a mosaic of fragmented truths. A pattern emerged, faint yet insistent. Amelia Vance had been digging too deep, her spade hitting something far harder than local corruption. A familiar tension coiled in your gut, not entirely unwelcome. It was the thrill of the hunt, the grim determination to peel back the layers of deceit. You felt the subtle shift, the quiet awakening of the detective you once were, a part of you thought had been irrevocably lost. The air in your office, once stale with resignation, now crackled with a nascent energy. This wasn't just about Amelia, or even about redemption. And you, Marcus Thorne, were going to unearth it. Dust motes danced in the sparse shafts of light that pierced the grime-streaked windows, illuminating the worn files stacked precariously on your desk. This was your penance, Marcus, a quiet purgatory far from the city's frantic pulse, where the only cases involved lost migrants and forgotten contraband. Yet, even here, the past found a way to bleed into the present. A fresh manila folder, stark against the faded stack, bore a familiar case number, a ghost from your early career. The murder of the investigative journalist, a puzzle unsolved, a stain on your burgeoning reputation. The official report, still crisp, detailed the initial findings: a random street robbery gone wrong, the narrative you'd been forced to accept. But the reopening order, stamped with an unfamiliar departmental seal, whispered a different truth. Why now? The question, sharp as a shard of glass, pricked at the callus around your heart. Determined, you pushed back the chair, the scrape echoing in the empty room, and left the desert's silent judgment behind. The city, when you returned, felt both alien and intimately familiar. Its concrete canyons seemed to lean in, whispering secrets only you could hear. You made your way to the abandoned factory, once a bustling hub, now a skeletal monument to industrial decay. This was the last confirmed location of the journalist before the body was found, the place where the official narrative had begun to fray. You moved through the cavernous space, your footsteps crunching on shards of broken glass and desiccated leaves. You remembered the initial sweep, the meticulous search, the dead ends. But now, with years of regret sharpening your gaze, you saw the omissions, the hasty conclusions. Your fingers traced the rough concrete where the journalist's belongings had been scattered, a scene meticulously staged to suggest chaos, yet lacking the true disarray of a violent struggle. It was too neat, too deliberate. Your eyes, honed by years of sifting through deception, landed on a faint, almost invisible scratch on a low-lying pipe, a mark easily dismissed as accidental. You knelt, pulling a small, powerful flashlight from your coat. The beam cut through the gloom, illuminating the pipe. 6 small gouges, deep and uneven, followed by a barely perceptible S etched into the metal. Then a pause, and 2 more gouges, followed by a P. 6s2p. It meant nothing, yet everything. This was a clue, planted by a mind that anticipated its own silencing. The journalist wasn't just investigating, they were exposing. The next stop was a cramped, smoke-filled office above a pawn shop, the kind of place where ambition went to die. The former colleague, a man whose face was now a roadmap of cynical lines, looked up from a dog-eared racing form as you entered. His eyes, once bright with shared idealism, were now clouded with suspicion and fatigue. "Marcus Thorne," he grunted, a bitter taste in his voice. "Heard you were trading sand for concrete these days." "Some things never change, do they, old friend?" you replied, your voice level. "Except this case. It's open. Again." He snorted, flicking ash into an overflowing tray. "Open? That thing was sealed tighter than a politician's wallet. Random street crime, remember? That's what they told us. Anything you might have missed, or were told to miss." The colleague leaned back, his chair groaning under his weight. "There's nothing to miss, Thorne." The journalist was digging in places they shouldn't. Had sources talking about, influential figures and campaign finance irregularities. But it was all just noise. Conspiracy theories, you know? The kind of stuff that gets people hurt. He paused, his gaze hardening. "Or worse. You'd do well to leave it buried, Marcus." The air in the small office grew thick with unspoken warnings. "Nothing concrete. Some low-level fixer, a few disgruntled aides. All dead ends." They all clammed up when the journalist went missing. Said they were misquoted or misunderstood. He took a long drag from his cigarette, the ember glowing like a malevolent eye. "You remember what happened last time, don't you? How quickly careers can unravel. How easily a reputation can be shredded. The message was clear: dig deeper, and your fragile chance at redemption would shatter." But the image of those 6 gouges, the S, the 2 gouges, the P burned in your mind. It was a puzzle, a breadcrumb left by a brilliant mind. The journalist wasn't just close to something significant, they were on the verge of exposing it. You traced the phantom S_P in the air, the memory of those gouges a brand on your mind. The journalist's final, desperate whisper, etched into the very fabric of your resolve. Not just close to something significant, but inside it, buried in its toxic core. The image of the S, the 2 gouges, the P refuses to recede, a recurring flicker behind your eyelids. It's a key, you know it, a fragment of a larger truth. You return to the digital ghost of the journalist, sifting through archived files on a borrowed, ancient laptop. The screen flickers with the ghostly glow of forgotten words, a labyrinth of research notes, interview transcripts, and encrypted documents. Hours bleed into each other, fueled by lukewarm coffee and the relentless gnaw of a puzzle demanding resolution. Your fingers fly across the keys, searching for patterns, for any mention of S&P in proximity, anything that hints at a larger design. Then, a breakthrough. Deep within a nested series of folders, hidden behind layers of decoy documents, you find it, an encrypted file, its metadata pointing to recent modification just days before the journalist's demise. The file name, partially obscured by a string of random characters, clearly begins with Centin and ends with a project. The S&P leap out, a beacon in the digital murk. Sentinel Project. Your mind races, connecting the fragmented threads. The journalist's notes within the decrypted file begin to unfurl a tapestry of corporate ambition and political maneuvering. The Sentinel project isn't just a local initiative, it's a colossal infrastructure development proposed for the southern borderlands, championed by the candidate whose presidential campaign now dominates the news cycles. The deeper you delve, the clearer the picture becomes. The project is a colossal land grab, cloaked in national security rhetoric, designed to enrich a select few at the expense of local communities and the fragile desert ecosystem. The journalist's last entry, dated the day of their death, simply reads a meeting at BP station, Sentinel project site visit. This wasn't just a random act, it was a targeted elimination. The journalist was about to expose something vital at that very location. The decision forms, hard and sharp as a flint blade. You have to go. The desert calls, its vast emptiness a canvas for secrets. You pack a sparse bag, the weight of your old badge, metaphorically speaking, heavy on your chest. The drive is long, the asphalt shimmering under a sun that bakes the very air. The landscape slowly transforms, scrub brush giving way to endless stretches of sand and rock, punctuated by the occasional skeletal saguaro. As you near the coordinates, the road narrows, becoming a dusty track. But something is off. The usual hum of activity, the steady stream of vehicles, is absent. An unsettling quiet hangs in the air, broken only by the whine of a distant generator. You park your aging vehicle a discreet distance away, the engine ticking as it cools. The wind, a hot, dry breath, carries the scent of dust and distant creosote. You approach on foot, moving with the cautious grace of a hunter. The main gate stands ajar, swaying slightly on rusted hinges. No guard is present. You push through, your senses stretched taut. A single, weathered sign points to storage and maintenance, south section. The journalist's notes mentioned a site visit. This must be it. You react on instinct, twisting away from the blunt force of a fist aimed at your temple. The blow glances off your shoulder, sending a jarring pain through your arm. You stumble, tasting dust and adrenaline. Two more figures emerge, flanking the first, their movements swift and practiced. These aren't petty thugs, they are disciplined, efficient. A metallic glint flashes in the hand of one of the enforcers, a heavy wrench, swung with murderous intent. The clang of metal against metal rings out as the wrench connects with the drum. You hear the scrape of boots on gravel, the low, guttural curses of your attackers. They are closing in. Your heart thrums a frantic drum against your ribs, but your mind is clear. This isn't intimidation, this is an execution attempt. They know you're digging. They know you're close. You scan your surroundings, desperate for an escape route, a weapon, anything. It's a long shot, but you're only one. As one of the enforcers rounds the drums, you burst from cover, a feral cry tearing from your throat. You shove the drum with all your might, sending it careening into the attacker, buying yourself precious seconds. You sprint towards the fence, the other two enforcers now hot on your heels. A sharp pain blossoms in your calf as something sharp grazes it, but you don't falter. You reach the fence, clawing at the loose wires, ignoring the tearing of your skin. With a final surge of adrenaline, you tear a gap wide enough and squeeze through, tumbling onto the rough desert floor on the other side. You scramble to your feet, not daring to look back, and run, the vast, empty desert your only witness. The distant shouts of your pursuers fade behind you as you put distance between yourself and the station, the stark confirmation of the danger a bitter taste in your mouth. You've stumbled into a viper's nest, and the snakes are already striking. This place, a fortress against the vast emptiness, felt like the edge of the world, a fitting stage for the unraveling threads of the Sentinel project. Inside, the station was a stark testament to its purpose, functional, worn, echoing with the ghosts of countless patrols. A weary-eyed records officer, his uniform a canvas of creases, greeted you with a nod that spoke of too many long nights. Marcus Thorne. Dating back, say, 15 years. The officer's brow furrowed. 15 years is a deep dive, Chief. Most of that stuff would be archived off-site, or, well, gone. He gestured vaguely to a wall of metal cabinets, their gray surfaces scarred with time. But I can check the local incident logs. Anything that might have been deemed minor and kept here. You followed him through a narrow hallway, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, casting a sickly pallor on the peeling paint. He pulled a heavy, dented drawer from a forgotten cabinet, dust motes dancing in the sudden shaft of light. Here, he grunted, Box 7B. Early 2000s. Good luck. He left you, the rhythmic clack of his boots fading down the hall. You began to sift through the brittle files, each document a whisper from a bygone era. Reports of minor smuggling attempts, lost hikers, cattle rustling, the mundane tapestry of border life. Your fingers, trained to discern the subtle weight of truth from deception, moved with practiced ease. The journalist's decrypted notes, still burning in your mind, had pointed to vague early disturbances and land disputes that predated the official announcement of the Sentinel project. You sought the seed, the first tremor. Your breath hitched. This was earlier than you'd anticipated, deeper into the past. You pulled it free, the paper crackling under your touch. The details were sparse, a claim of encroachment by a local rancher, quickly resolved, no charges filed. But it was the signature at the bottom that stole the air from your lungs, an icy tendril coiling in your gut. Detective R. Hayes. Richard Hayes. Your former partner. The man who taught you how to read a crime scene, how to trust your gut, how to navigate the murky depths of the city's underbelly. He had mentioned a routine desert patrol around that time, a way to clear his head, he'd said. Never this. Never a property dispute at the exact future site of the Sentinel project. A wave of nausea washed over you. The report, seemingly innocuous, now screamed a different story. Why would Hayes, meticulous to a fault, sign off on something so vaguely detailed, so quickly dismissed, in an area that would later become central to a multi-billion-dollar development? And why, in all the years of shared camaraderie, had he never once mentioned it? You flipped through the attached evidence log, a single, faded photograph stapled within. It showed a small, unassuming wooden marker, half buried in the sand, demarcating a property line. But behind it, barely visible, was a glint of metal, a surveyor's tripod, partially obscured by scrub. A surveyor. 2 decades ago. For a minor property dispute that was quickly resolved? The pieces clicked into place with a sickening finality. Hayes wasn't just patrolling, he was involved. Or at least, he was present and silent. He had known something, seen something, been part of something tied to this project from its very inception. And he had kept it from you, from everyone. The determination that had been your constant companion twisted into a knot of bitter betrayal. You remembered the look in his eyes when you'd last met for coffee, the easy smile, the familiar banter. Was it all a mask? Was he playing a part even then, watching your desperate scramble for redemption with an insider's knowledge, perhaps even a conspirator's amusement? The journalist hadn't just stumbled upon a conspiracy, he had touched upon a network of deceit that reached into your own past, implicating someone you had trusted with your life. The path to justice had just become a treacherous minefield of personal ghosts. You gripped the report, the name Art Hayes searing into your mind, a new, agonizing puzzle piece in a game you now knew was far more personal than you had ever imagined. You were left alone, the fluorescent hum a dull thrum against the sudden quiet. The colleague's retreating footsteps faded, leaving you with the heavy, dented drawer, its label proclaiming Box 7B. Early 2000s. Dust, thick as a forgotten memory, coated the metal, a fine powder that clung to your fingertips as you pulled it free. Inside, a jumble of manila folders, brittle with age, lay like unearthed secrets. Your fingers, calloused from years of gripping truth, sifted through the yellowed reports. Case summaries, interview transcripts, faded photographs of crime scenes in weary faces. The journalist's bright, defiant eyes stared up from a mugshot-style photo, taken just weeks before her life was extinguished. You remembered her then, a whirlwind of inconvenient questions and relentless pursuit. Hours bled into a haze of paper and stale air. Each document a whisper from the past, each photo a ghost. Not a standard audio cassette, but a miniature digital tape, the kind used in early camcorders or data storage devices. It wasn't listed on any inventory. A flicker of intuition, a familiar itch of something deliberately concealed, prickled at your skin. You found an old, dusty reader in a back corner, a relic of forgotten tech. The tape clicked into place. A password prompt. You tried the journalist's birthdate, her mother's maiden name, a few common phrases. Nothing. You typed it in. The screen changed. A single, compressed file. You clicked, and a map appeared, overlaid with GPS coordinates. A desolate stretch of land, far from any major city, deep in the arid expanse of the Southwest. An odd place for a journalist to hide anything. The sun beat down with an indifferent fury, baking the asphalt into a shimmering mirage as you drove. The air conditioning in your aging sedan struggled, offering only tepid relief. The world thinned out, shedding its complexities, leaving only the vast, indifferent expanse of the desert. The GPS on your phone, clinging to a single bar of signal, guided you further into the silence. Finally, a cluster of dilapidated buildings emerged from the heat haze. It looked abandoned, its windows boarded up, its paint peeling like sunburnt skin. A rusted sign, half obscured by a tumbleweed, creaked in the hot breeze. This was not an active post, it was a forgotten husk. You parked a discreet distance away, the gravel crunching under your tires, a loud intrusion in the stillness. As you approached the main building, a sense of unease settled over you. The door hung ajar, groaning on a single hinge. Inside, the air was stagnant, heavy with the smell of decay and disuse. Dust motes danced in the slivers of light piercing the boarded windows. Old office furniture, overturned and broken, lay scattered like fallen monuments. Your flashlight beam cut through the gloom, painting fleeting patterns on the walls. You followed the digital map's instructions, a red dot blinking insistently in what appeared to be a former communications room. The room was mostly empty, save for a few metal lockers, their doors dented and scarred. The map pointed to the last locker on the left, its exterior unremarkable. You tried to pry it open, but it was jammed. A quick kick to the side, and the rusted latch gave way with a screech of tortured metal. Inside, nestled amongst old field manuals and a forgotten uniform, was a waterproof Pelican case. Your breath hitched. This was it. The journalist's hidden trove. You snapped open the latches. You powered it on. The boot-up screen showed a familiar, custom-made encryption program. The same one from the tape. The same password. You typed it in, your fingers trembling slightly. The screen flooded with information. Not just files, but a meticulously organized database. Your eyes scanned the first few lines, and the world tilted. It was all there. A comprehensive exposé. The journalist had uncovered a vast network of illicit financing, funneling black funds through shell corporations and offshore accounts. The money led directly to the campaign of the prominent politician, not just for funding, but for outright bribery and coercion. He had identified them, not by name, but by function, the architects. A group of unelected power brokers, pulling strings from the highest echelons, manipulating markets, influencing policy, and silencing anyone who threatened their grand design. A specific document, titled Operation Chimera, detailed the journalist's murder. Not a random act, but a targeted assassination, ordered by a high-ranking campaign strategist to prevent her from publishing these very files. The silent partner, a figure of immense wealth and influence, was named as the ultimate orchestrator, the true head of the architects. He wasn't just a financier, he was the architect of their entire operation. The journalist hadn't been a victim of chance, he had been a martyr to a truth too dangerous to tell. And now, you held that truth. The implications crashed over you like a tidal wave. Your badge was gone, your reputation in tatters. It would be a lonely fight, a brutal one. But looking at the journalist's determined face and a small photo tucked into the laptop lid, you knew there was no turning back. This wasn't about redemption anymore. This was about justice for horror. For the system they had corrupted. You would see this through, no matter the cost. The hunt had begun, and you were its relentless predator. The fluorescent hum, once a dull thrum against the sudden quiet, now throbbed with an unspoken urgency. Your fingers, still gritty from the dust of forgotten memories, traced the metallic label of Box 7B. You stood on the precipice of a revelation, the weight of the moment pressing down, a palpable presence. A sharp, insistent buzz from the burner phone in your pocket ripped through the silence, a harsh counterpoint to the room's hushed anticipation. You answered, the screen a stark glow against your face. It was the former contact, their voice a rapid-fire torrent of words, tight with an urgency that chilled you to the bone. They know, Marcus. Everything. Your name's on every screen, every list. The air in the room, once merely dusty, now felt thick with accusation, heavy with the sudden, crushing weight of being hunted. The building, once a sanctuary of forgotten files, transformed into a cage. You wrenched open the drawer, scattering the fine dust like disturbed ghosts. Inside, files, yellowed at the edges, brittle with age, lay stacked in somber rows. You pulled out a dossier, thinner than the rest, labeled with the journalist's name. Tucked within, a small, worn photograph. The journalist had found this, visited it, and perhaps, died for it. Instinct, sharp and unforgiving, screamed at you. Every rearview mirror check was a darting glance, every engine rumble a potential pursuer. The city, once a familiar maze, became a hostile landscape, its lights a beacon for eyes you could not see. On a gas station television, your face, grim and distorted, stared back from the screen, a grim caricature of a disgraced man. Rogue element. Armed and dangerous. They had painted you perfectly, a target for every vigilant eye, every opportunistic hand. You made a quick, encrypted call to the former informant, a ghost in the digital ether. I need you to run a string. Land deeds, anything unusual near the border. The informant's usual flippancy was gone, replaced by a grave understanding. You're deep in it. Marcus. Be careful. The desert called to you, a vast, indifferent canvas under a sky bleeding twilight hues. The coordinates from the journalist's photograph pointed south, deep into the arid expanse. The sedan devoured miles, dust swirling in its wake, a temporary shroud against the world. The heat was a physical presence, pressing against the windows, baking the sparse vegetation, a constant reminder of the unforgiving terrain. It was a place of scrutiny, a place of records, and perhaps, a place of answers or a trap. Floodlights illuminated the chain-link fences, the watchtowers, the stern, unyielding faces of the agents. You parked the sedan a quarter-mile away, shrouded by the skeletal mesquite trees, and approached on foot, a silhouette against the stark horizon. The air was thick with the scent of diesel, dust, and the underlying tension of a place always on alert. Your heart, a drum against your ribs, beat a rhythm of calculated risk. You needed to access their manifests, their crossing logs, to see if Oasis meant something more, something tangible, something hidden in plain sight amidst the endless flow of people and goods. The journalist's scrawled note, the coordinates, the single word, it all pointed to this desolate stretch of land, a nexus for something far more sinister than simple border crossings. A patrol vehicle, its lights sweeping the perimeter, slowed near your position. The beam caught you for a fleeting second, illuminating your face before moving on, a brief, terrifying spotlight. Inside the station, the hum of computers, the murmur of voices, a symphony of bureaucracy. You slipped past the main entrance, finding a less guarded access point, a service door leading to a back office, its lock a flimsy barrier against your desperate resolve. Your target, the digital archives, the records of cargo, of individuals, of movements across this stark line. As your fingers hovered over a keyboard, poised to unlock the secrets of Oasis, a sharp voice sliced through the quiet. From directly behind you. Looking for something specific, Thorne? The cold metal of a weapon pressed against the nape of your neck. A sudden, brutal end to your brief, fragile freedom. Your fingers, calloused from years of gripping truth, delve into the forgotten world of Box 7B. Early 2000s. Dust motes dance in the narrow beam of your utility light, illuminating the brittle edges of files, the faded ink of reports. This is not just a box, it is a time capsule, a silent testament to a life cut short, waiting for your touch to rekindle its final, burning secret. It masquerades as a field guide for desert flora, but its weight, its meticulous craftsmanship, whispers a different story. You feel the tremor of anticipation, a cold, precise current running through your veins. This is it. Your thumb traces the worn spine, then finds a subtle seam along the inner edge of the back cover. A faint click, almost imperceptible, as the false bottom gives way. Within, nestled in velvet, lies not a map, but a single, minute microSD card. It gleams under your light, a digital shard of evidence, holding more weight than any stone tablet. Your hands, steady despite the tremor in your gut, insert the card into a reader. The journalist was thorough, knew the stakes. Then, the breakthrough. A string of characters, a forgotten password from an old case file, unlocks the digital cage. The file expands. It's an audio recording. You press play. The static crackles, a preamble to revelation. Then, a voice, clear and resonant, unmistakably the journalist's. There's a subtle tremor in their tone, a controlled tension. They are speaking to someone, confronting them. And then, the other voice. Smooth, authoritative, laced with an undercurrent of menace. The voice of the prominent politician, undeniable. The politician says, the recording capturing the subtle shift in their tone, a predatory edge. Some truths are best left buried. The journalist. Resolute, responds, the truth always finds its way out. It was where the journalist intended to expose the conspiracy, to meet a contact, or perhaps, to lay a final trap. The recording ends abruptly, a sharp, final click that echoes in the quiet room. You have it all. The entire fabric of the cover-up lies exposed, a raw nerve. This isn't just redemption, it's retribution. But you know the rules of this game. The evidence, however damning, will not be enough to fell such a powerful figure through conventional channels. The system is too compromised, too many hands are stained. You must force their hand. It's a stage, stark and unforgiving, for the final act. You formulate a plan, a dangerous gambit. You will use their own arrogance against them. You craft a message, concise and cryptic, yet potent enough to sting the politician's pride and ignite their fear. It is sent through an untraceable channel to their most trusted operative, a whisper in the digital wind. The desert wind carries secrets. At the station, under the first star, the truth will be unveiled. Be there, or watch your empire crumble. You know this is a trap. You are walking into the maw of the beast, offering yourself as bait. But the alternative is to let the truth perish, to let the journalist's sacrifice be in vain. That is a price you will not pay. The old pickup truck groans to life, its engine a rough symphony against the encroaching night. You drive west, leaving the city lights behind, pushing deeper into the vast, indifferent expanse of the desert. The air grows cooler, sharper, carrying the scent of creosote and distant dust. Your grip on the steering wheel tightens, knuckles white. The road ahead stretches, a ribbon of asphalt disappearing into the horizon, mirroring the path you've chosen, unyielding, fraught with peril. It stands stark and isolated, a beacon of authority in a lawless expanse, now transformed into an arena. You kill the engine. You step out, the grit of the desert floor crunching beneath your boots. You are here. And you are ready. The old pickup truck groans to life, its engine a rough symphony against the encroaching silence. You drive, the last vestiges of twilight bleeding from the sky, painting the desert in hues of bruised purple and ochre. The dust, a fine, ancient powder, rises in plumes behind you, a spectral tail pursuing your resolve. Each mile marker is a drumbeat, counting down to the inevitable. Not a bustling hub, but a forgotten sentinel, its windows like vacant eyes staring into the void. Rust blossoms across corrugated metal, and the wind, a mournful breath, whistles through broken panes. This place, a monument to abandonment, hums with a different kind of vigil tonight. It is the perfect stage for a final act, a place where screams might dissipate into the vast, uncaring expanse. You cut the engine. The sudden quiet is a physical weight, pressing in from all sides. The air, thin and sharp, carries the scent of dry earth and distant creosote. Not the shifting phantoms of the desert wind, but deliberate forms, coalescing into men. They move with an unsettling fluidity, a predatory grace honed by purpose. 3, then 5, emerging from the deeper gloom, their faces obscured by the dimness, their intentions clear in the slow, deliberate way they advance. Their hands are empty, for now, a silent invitation to a negotiation you know will never be fair. Then, from the central, gaping doorway of the station, a sixth figure emerges. This one does not blend. This one commands. Tall, with an aura of unyielding authority that precedes them, even in the gloom. The moonlight, now a silver coin in the sky, catches the sharp lines of their tailored suit, the glint of a watch, the precise part in their hair. This is not a foot soldier. You always were one for grand gestures. You stand your ground, your spine a rigid pillar against the vast indifference of the desert. You always were one for hiding in them. A faint, almost imperceptible smile touches the architect's lips. A necessary precaution, given the nature of our enterprise. You see, the world isn't built on truth, Thorne. It's built on carefully constructed narratives. Because they found the truth you've been burying under your carefully constructed narratives. The architect's gaze, though distant, feels like a physical probe. A regrettable accident. A loose end. You offered them power, and they offered you unchecked influence. The journalist, with their relentless pursuit of facts, uncovered the offshore accounts, the shell corporations funneling campaign funds, the backroom deals that promised lucrative contracts to your network of companies once the politician was in office. They had the ledgers, the coded messages, the digital breadcrumbs linking the politician directly to your organization's illicit operations. A flicker of something, annoyance, perhaps, or a grudging respect, crosses the architect's face. Clever. But incomplete. Not incomplete, you correct, your voice gaining strength, just waiting for the final piece. They had arranged a dead drop, a final act of defiance. But you found them first. Not an accident, but a calculated execution. A single shot to the head, meant to look like a robbery gone wrong, to make their findings seem like a desperate, final act of a paranoid mind. One of the enforcers shifts, their hand dipping towards their jacket. The air crackles with unspoken tension. You underestimated the journalist's dedication, you continue, refusing to break eye contact with the architect. And you underestimated the ripple effect of their death. The files, the recordings, the evidence they meticulously gathered, it wasn't just stored in one place. It was scattered, a failsafe. And I found it. Piece by agonizing piece. The politician's direct order to neutralize the problem, delivered through an encrypted channel, was the final, damning link. The architect's composure finally cracks, a hairline fracture across their polished facade. You have nothing but conjecture, Thorne. It's a satellite transmitter, rigged to stream everything you've just said, and everything that's about to happen, to a secure network. I have the truth, broadcast live. Every word spoken here, every action taken, is being sent to the world. A final testament from the journalist, delivered by me. The politician's career, your organization's carefully constructed empire, it's all crumbling, right now. A low growl emanates from the enforcers. You think a live feed will save you? It saves the truth, you retort, a grim satisfaction settling in your gut. And it exposes you. You are outnumbered, outmatched, but not outmaneuvered. You pivot, bringing the butt of your pistol down in a swift, brutal arc. A grunt, a stumble. The second enforcer is already upon you, a heavy hand seizing your shoulder, spinning you around. Your adrenaline surges, a fierce, hot current. You twist, a desperate, practiced move, wrenching your shoulder free, bringing your knee up hard. The enforcer gasps, their grip loosening, and you use the momentum to throw them against a decaying wall. The sound of splintering wood echoes through the station. You move deeper into the station, the transmitter still clutched tight, its tiny red light a defiant beacon. You duck behind a rusted filing cabinet, the metallic clang of bullets ricocheting off its surface a deafening symphony of danger. They are closing in, their movements coordinated, relentless. You know this isn't just about silencing you anymore. It's about retribution. You are a dead man walking, perhaps, but the world will hear your final steps. You pivot, the enforcer's momentum carrying him past, a blur of dark fabric and raw intent. He grunts, stumbling, a momentary fissure in their coordinated advance. But others are already closing in, a tightening circle of grim faces and raised fists. The air, thick with the scent of dust and disuse, now crackles with a new, dangerous electricity. You parry a wild swing, the impact jarring your forearm, before ducking under a second, sweeping leg. The concrete floor, scarred and grimy, offers little purchase, but your focus is a honed blade. You move with a desperate grace, a dance of evasion and precise counterstrikes. This is the truth of it, Marcus, not the grand deductions, not the intricate webs, but the brutal, immediate reality of survival. A knee connects with your thigh, a searing pain, but you push through it, leveraging the pain into a surge of adrenaline. You see the glint of a metal pipe in the hand of the largest enforcer, a silent promise of finality. Just as the pipe begins its downward arc, a cacophony erupts from the main entrance. A sharp, authoritative shout slices through the din, followed by the unmistakable crack of a breaching charge. The heavy metal doors, already sagging, groan and then collapse inward with a deafening clang, sending a plume of fine desert dust billowing into the air. Uniformed federal agents, weapons raised, flood the station, their flashlights cutting through the gloom like eager predator eyes. Federal agents. Drop your weapons. The enforcers hesitate, caught between their assignment and the sudden, overwhelming force. The one with the pipe freezes, his eyes flicking between you and the incoming wave. It's enough. You seize the moment, a swift, brutal kick to his knee, sending him sprawling. The pipe clatters away, harmless. The detective strides towards you, his gaze sharp, assessing. He doesn't offer a hand, doesn't utter a word of praise. His eyes, however, hold a grudging respect, a silent acknowledgement of the chaos you've stirred, the hornet's nest you've overturned. Behind him, other agents are moving with practiced efficiency, securing the perimeter, cuffing the subdued enforcers. The politician, you manage, your voice rough, your body aching in places you hadn't realized existed. Secured, the detective replies, his tone clipped. Attempting to flee through a service tunnel. And he was quite. Especially when faced with the evidence we've been gathering, and the data you provided. Seems the pressure finally broke him. He started singing about the organization, about the journalist, about everything. The detective pauses, letting the weight of his words settle. He implicated the higher echelons, the entire network. Even the initial cover-up of the journalist's murder. Called it a necessary sacrifice for the greater good. His lip curls in disgust. The truth, a shard of ice, pierces the carefully constructed facade of the past years. The murder, once dismissed as a random act of violence, a tragic footnote in your career, now stands revealed as the calculated opening move in a grander, more sinister game. The journalist hadn't been an unfortunate victim, he had been a target, her investigation too close to the heart of their power. The politician, a pawn in a larger scheme, had sealed her fate. You walk through the station, the air now filled with the crackle of police radios and the murmur of agents. Each step is a fresh ache, a reminder of the physical cost. You pass the secured enforcers, their faces stripped of their earlier menace, now just men caught in a web. The vast, empty station, once your arena of desperation, now feels like a tomb where secrets have been finally exhumed. Outside, the first tendrils of twilight paint the desert sky in hues of bruised purple and fiery orange. A convoy of official vehicles, lights flashing, stretches into the distance, carrying away the captured, the evidence, and the shattered remnants of a political career. Already, the news helicopters are circling like vultures, their blades thrumming a distant, urgent beat. The story will break tonight. The public will reel. The carefully curated image of a presidential hopeful will crumble to dust, revealing the rot beneath. The weight on your shoulders, the burden of failure and the ghost of the journalist, begins to lift, not entirely, but enough to breathe. Redemption. You achieved what you set out to do, Marcus Thorne. The years lost, the reputation shredded, the solitude embraced. Lots of statements. You nod, turning your gaze towards the horizon, where the last sliver of sun dips below the mountains. The immediate battle is over, but the war for truth, against the unseen architects of power, feels far from finished. This exposure is a victory, yes, but it's also an awakening, a clear understanding that the roots of this organization run deeper, wider, than a single disgraced politician. The quiet, insidious nature of their power, revealed but not yet fully dismantled, lingers like a promise of future confrontation. You are no longer just seeking redemption, you are now irrevocably bound to the fight. Your path, once a winding trail of regret, now stretches forward, clear and dangerous. The last ember of the sun has long since vanished, leaving behind a canvas of indigo streaked with the milky dust of distant stars. The victory, raw and hard-won, feels less like a celebration and more like a breath finally exhaled after years held captive. The politician's carefully constructed facade shattered, the intricate web of influence pulled taut and then snapped under the relentless pressure of truth. The journalist's ghost, for so long a spectral weight on your shoulders, now seems to drift with a lighter grace into the cool desert air. You remember the sterile glint of the crime scene from so long ago, the whispers of a random act, the dismissal that had festered into your downfall. It was never random. It was always a calculated silencing, a thread in a tapestry of power you are only now truly seeing. Your hand instinctively rises to the phantom weight of a badge that no longer exists, a ghost limb of your former self. Disgraced, you were. A pariah, exiled from the very system you once vowed to uphold. But that exile, that long walk through the wilderness of your own regret, forged a different kind of sight. It stripped away the blinders, sharpen the edges of your perception, allowing you to see the true architects of chaos, not just their foot soldiers. The failure that defined you, the one that broke your career and haunted your every waking moment, has finally found its counterpoint in this fragile, hard-earned triumph. The gravel crunches softly under your boots as you pace a short, uneven line. You recall the faces, the veiled threats, the subtle manipulations. Each interaction, a clue. Each confrontation, a step closer to this precipice of understanding. You were a pawn once, Marcus Thorne, moved by forces unseen, but no longer. You became the player, the one who overturned the board. A faint hum emanates from the station's interior, a mundane counterpoint to the monumental shift in your own universe. You look up, past the antenna array, past the stark floodlights, into the limitless expanse above. The stars, countless pinpricks of light, seem to hold ancient secrets, indifferent to the petty struggles of humanity, yet they bear witness. They always bear witness. Redemption. The word tastes like dust and triumph on your tongue. It isn't a clean slate, not a return to a past innocence. It's a scar, deep and permanent, but one that has healed into a testament of endurance. But the war, as you acknowledged earlier, is far from finished. The unseen architects, though wounded, still pull their invisible strings. Their influence permeates the very air you breathe, the institutions that define your world. The exposure of one politician, however prominent, is but a tremor in the earth, not an earthquake that topples the entire edifice. This moment of peace, this quiet victory, is merely a pause, a chance to rearm and refocus. You feel a profound, almost dizzying sense of purpose. The old path, the one with the badge and the regulations, is closed forever. But a new path, uncharted and fraught with unseen dangers, stretches before you, lit by the unwavering flame of justice. It's a solitary road, you know this. The network of power you've uncovered is vast and unforgiving. They will not forget. They will not forgive. But neither will you. You breathe it in, deep and slow, letting it fill your lungs, a physical manifestation of this new beginning. There is no applause, no ticker-tape parade, just the vast, silent judgment of the desert night. And that, you realize, is enough. The satisfaction comes not from external validation, but from the quiet certainty within. Your journey has led you to the edge, to the place where worlds meet and sometimes collide. The fight continues, yes, but now, you are ready for it. You are finally, truly, ready.